Don't forget to stick around through the end of the video for information on our Arrive Serpentor Arrive giveaway. Cobra. It's safe to say they have a lot of different troopers, vipers, soldiers, and infantry in general. It's almost like they're some evil terrorist organization run like a machine bent on world domination. Even some of their hordes are machines, but one particular group has always stood out among the rest, an elite group reserved for the most important of duties, the Crimson Guard. Covered from head to toe in, well, crimson red formal uniforms and helmets that would fit in with just about any stormtrooper garrison, these elite soldiers of the Viper Squad reported directly to the aptly named Crimson Twins, Tomax and Zaymot, and served as Cobra Commander's faithful personal guard. If you wanted to get to him, you'd have to go through them, and that was no easy task. But don't think that this is all they're good for. The Crimson Guard go far beyond simple protection. These members have been known to serve as undercover agents spanning the globe, full covers, trained to infiltrate and deeply root within financial and political sectors in an effort to destabilize and apply Cobra influence. Their roles are so important and vital to Cobra operations, some have their appearances altered to be clones of one another in what are referred to as series of members. In the Fred series, for example, many individual agents of the Guard are transformed into Freds and installed as a predecessor passes. One Fred defected from Cobra with his family, including his son, who would grow to become G.I. Joe codename Kamakura, whose figure has appeared in the classified line and on this channel. Now, the Crimson Guard and all of its visual intimidation can also join collections in the Classified Series line thanks to this latest release from Hasbro. Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan, aka JK of JK Collection. Remember, I'll be posting new videos almost every day as great new ads arrive. If that sounds of interest to you and you haven't already done so, please click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any episode. Every subscription truly does mean a lot to me personally. And in this episode, we are taking a closer look at the Hasbro 6-inch scale G.I. Joe Classified Series, Crimson Guard. Hey everyone, welcome back. Here it is, the G.I. Joe Classified Series, Crimson Guard. Very excited to have this one. I think I get excited about every G.I. Joe that I add. But this one, I mean, there are some that are just a little bit extra of an enjoyment because it's just something about that costume I've always been drawn to ever since I was a kid. Right? That and in Star Wars, the Emperor's Royal, the Red Guard, they just always were in a very similar category for me. But anyway, I digress. We're talking about G.I. Joe. Here is our lovely mural on the back, and this thing again needs to be updated, right? I don't even see the Crimson Guard on here. I see all kinds of representations, but I do not see the Crimson Guard, so maybe we'll get a new mural soon. Yeah, those are troopers, and then the ninjas. How about that? Okay, so it's about time. Let's get an update. All right, but you know what? On the side, we'll check this out. Here are the skills and the rankings, right? So most of them do appear on the website, the gijo.hasbro.com. Over here, we've got that artwork. I always love seeing these representations that different artists each time, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they've duplicated one before, but it's just neat to see all this, right? So these versions of people just putting their spin, their mind into drawing these characters is so cool. Another thing where it could be the whole box, but this one escaped the windowless packaging, and we get to see the figure. And there he is in all of his glory and so many things that match the original. So let's just get in here and dig in and look more closely at this figure. I'm very excited. I think the more excited I am, the more I ramble. You may have noticed, here's our pamphlet. Let's go ahead and pull it out. I've got an empty box. So there we go. Now let's see everything that we've got in this tray. Very cool. So let's pull out the backpack. Neat to see that it is in a black color instead of the red that I believe I remember the original coming in, right? Just kind of going with that original cast plastic color. I know we have a magazine in there. It doesn't want to come out. Let's get that. Firearm out. A sword. We've got a blade. We've got a sheath. So much cool stuff. And it's just, even beyond the red color scheme of this. Oh, there we go. So that went flying. We'll get that. So be careful with that. Some of these things, they've got like they're recessed underneath the plastic a little bit, and they're a little bit of a challenge to get out. But in doing so, be careful that they don't launch like mine just did. Fortunately, it did not make it far, but it did launch off camera. So there we go. All right, let's take a look at all of these accessories. Anyway, as I was saying, their accessories are so, their look and their accessories are just so regal, right? So here, let's start with the backpack. Good old color. There we go. And it's, we've got our focus in there, but there's our Crimson Guard backpack. Now, different color, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the original did come in that cast red plastic. They didn't really venture into adding a black cast plastic, but it was a very similar shape, if not identical. It did that kind of almost like you could fit an Autobot or a Decepticon face on there, right? Another thing that I always thought was neat, it was probably unintentional, but it tied to another line just by that shape. I thought it was kind of cool. So here on this, it is that cast plastic. There are some spots where some paint apps could have helped, right? So these buckles, would have been neat to see those get that silver treatment like the Cobra emblem did. Now the emblem is on there fairly well. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty centered. If anything, it's kind of rotated up this way, if that makes sense. But not enough. That's me being nitpicky, as usual. And then here on this side, we even have some sculpting on the inside of this, which is interesting because, I mean, unless it's off like this, you're not really going to see that, but it would be neat to see those buckles painted silver or something. Yeah, probably silver, I guess, to match everything else. But there we go. Very cool. It does not open. You know, hey, we can only hope for so much. And then here we've got a spot for something to attach to it. I'm assuming it's going to be their firearm. But then speaking of some of the regal things, and I may be off kilter by calling it regal, but it's just neat that they come with a sword and a sheath, or a scabbard. Would that be one of the terminologies for it? So this, the hard plastic, right? It is flexible just because it's thin, but I don't think it's designed to be flexed necessarily. And it's just in that black cast plastic, no extra detail or anything like that. There is detail in the casting itself, as you can see, to kind of give it somewhat of a leathery appearance right there. And then this is a little bit more of a just smoother, flat plastic. So very neat. And then moving on to the sword, cast in black, painted silver on the blade. The handle is in that black color, which is good. I mean, it is cast in that black, so there's no paint on it to scratch off or worry about any kind of paint rub in putting it in and out of the hand, so on and so forth. But, you know, it always could be cool in some of the spots where the hand wouldn't go to see a little bit of detail painted on there. What color, one may ask? I don't know. But if there was anything I could ask for, it would just be a little bit of making that detail pop. But the silver on the blade looks very well done. Very even. It reaches pretty close to the very end. It's a straight line. And my lights are creating enough of a shadow where it's not really an issue. But, you know, in certain lights, you might be able to tell that there's a little bit of bleed over of the silver. Not enough to really be a problem. And ultimately, it's painted very well. And this is of a more flexible plastic than this was. Certainly looks like it is directional because we got a little bit of a curve there on the end. So it does slide in and gets a little bit tight as it's going down just to help hold it in so it won't fall out. But there we go. Very nice on that. And then, of course, since we'll stay with the blades, here we have this one. This just kind of a nice little large, I say little, knife to go on the side. Got the serrations right there. Very dangerous looking knife, right? Not for us, obviously. It's fairly flexible and, you know, the tip, it's pretty wide, so it's not too dangerous, not too much pain inflicted by accidentally bumping into it. And then the handle is in that cast plastic. I do like the end here. As you can see, it's like a little bit of a snake head. How cool of a little extra detail is that, right? And this one, of course, had that same thing. I just didn't really point it out. See, there we go. So not only are they matching, but they are matching snake heads. That is so neat, right? So very cool. I mean, only the best for the best, right? And here's their sidearm, just a generic one, right? Cast in that black plastic, and you can see it does that different finish, perhaps like it's from some release agent. That just kind of causes that different sheen on there, which is fine, right? I say it is fine because it kind of adds a little bit to the weapon. It's not just that one solid sheen, I've decided in looking at these things, because, you know, a weapon being cleaned and oiled and all that stuff, it might look a little bit shinier in some places, but it would also be neat to see some paint or some intentional action done on that. And we've seen that in some of the weapons, right? Some of them have had a little bit of an extra paint job applied to them. And then, of course, we got the opening for some blast effects. And last but not least, boom. It would not be a Crimson Guard if it did not come with this, right? So the classic that good old-fashioned firearm that comes with it. Like I said, I don't really like to throw names out there. I think by visual appearance, any kid from the 80s can easily recognize what this one is. It seems like everybody carried this exact weapon with or without a bayonet, but there we go. And then, of course, we've got the removable magazine on there. And this thing is just fantastic. I appreciate the silver painted on the bayonet here with it strapped on. It would have been cool, as usual, to see a little bit of just like extra highlight. Because, you know, sometimes we see where in here it's painted a little bit silver or some just little tiny details are added on there. But regardless, the detail on this is great, even if there's not any paint to help make it pop out. I appreciate that this comes in and out. And yeah, that is our Crimson Guard sidearm or weapon rifle that we are used to, and it's just so cool seeing it in this larger scale. Speaking of the Crimson Guard himself, let's take a look at the figure. And boy, you know, there may be some subtle changes to it or differences, but just the nostalgia from looking at this guy, right, in this larger scale, it is just, it's so cool seeing these things come out and out for a new generation, you know, new generations of G.I. Joe collectors and those of us who are reminiscing. Okay, so anyway, I will stop taking tangents here, but here's the guy. So let's take a closer look at this helmet, right? So very, very well sculpted. It definitely gives that Crimson Guard look that we're used to. And like I said, I mean, it's like it's a happy blend between a Cobra Trooper and a Stormtrooper or something from Star Wars. It's just, I've always been fascinated by this, by the full helmet with the thinner visor, right? Just kind of draws like that Mandalorian look or something like that. And then just the opening here in the front. It's just so cool and different from the other Vipers, right? At least when this first came out. Then a lot of other Vipers came along and they had some very cool face masks. They kind of realized, hey, we've got a great opportunity here. Anyway, this one is very well sculpted. Just by looking at it, you can kind of see some of the black got a little bit uneven here. So some went onto the red here, and some of it kind of loses it up at this line here. You can see it kind of bleeds out and then kind of cuts in a little bit. The silver, pretty well applied on this logo or emblem, but you can see where some of it also went over on the red of the helmet. That's one of the keys of having that red background, is you can easily see where something bled over, some black over here. But again, this is all very up close, and in person, it's hard for me to tell that there's an issue. The silver line here looks very clean, all in all, considering how thin it is and how precise you have to be getting it in where it is recessed in there. So they did a good job on it. I cannot say that there is anything negative enough to be deterred by this. The neck is separate from the torso, and it is a black neck, so it looks like it's got just, you know, that undersuit, the bodysuit underneath it. The head will tilt on its own side to side. Even if the neck gets involved, it does not really add a lot to that capability. Up and down the helmet is definitely hitting the collar back here, so up is not much, but it does look slightly upward from what straightforward would be, right? And then down, not too bad. It seems like what you want to do is either to the left or right, little collar piece. You can get a little bit further down because the helmet, and you can see there's a little bit of red showing underneath there where the black and silver didn't quite get around. But the helmet will tuck that bit of collar. It seems to work better over here on the figure's left-hand side, where it tucks a little bit better here. I don't know if yours will be a different experience, but it just seems to tuck further with that collar, but it does help the helmet go down, the head go down. Even still, it's not a big downward look, right? Which is tough to do with a helmet that has this shape, and you've got this collar also limiting mobility. But let's check some mobility limitations, and can, yes, I think it can. It definitely can. So we've got full exorcist rotation capability there, and it does leave the neck behind, so the neck is not doing that excessive rotation with it. Let's check out the shoulder. We do have a butterfly joint in there, so very cool and very well hidden by the costume, right? So even with it pulled out, you know, the line there is kind of tough to see. It is very well blended. If I turn it right, obviously the shadow can work with me, but look right there, see? With the shadow working with me and not against me, with me, against me, with me, against me. Anyway, you can see that it just kind of blends in, right? So good flexibility for that. And then, of course, the shoulder has good rotation capability. We do have the bicep, tricep. Slight curve in it. You see that? It's like a tiny little curve right there. But it is ultimately a flat piece that's rotating here. And it does stay in a little bit better than the Zorana that we recently reviewed, so I am happy to see that. But it does give full rotation in that bicep tricep. Now, this is not the first one that I've seen where it's done that. It is a very clean transition from shoulder on down to tricep and bicep as a result. But I almost feel like when it's a more rounded shoulder and this can curve up around it, I feel like that's a little bit better experience when rotating it, because it doesn't create these quite flat pieces right here sticking out. Now that means you have something that's kind of curving up, and it still does look a little weird, but flat looks a little less realistic, I guess is what I'll say. Elbow, we've got double pinless elbow for the good old Crimson Guard here, so that's very cool to see that. Decent flexibility on it, right? Because it's not overly muscular, so it's not blocking it. It can go past a 90 degrees flex. There's no forearm rotation, but there is a wrist rotation, extremely hindered by this point right here on the sleeve. Okay, so it does rotate very well. And then the hand, yep, we've got a very slight, so you can see a little hinge right there. So it will do the up and down for this weapon holding hand. And then same thing with the other arm. Both of these are trigger finger / weapon holding hands. This is the only set of hands that it comes with, but it also has this bit on the sleeve right there that's going to serve as quite a hindrance with rotation. It does still rotate all around because it is flexible, but if you're trying to make the hand go forward and backwards or up and down here, it's not going to work very well. It will do up and down as a normal hand, but if you're trying to do some sideways holding, it's not going to give you a whole lot of posability, is what I'm saying. So here we've got that typical U joint for the lower abdomen or mid torso, but it does give that excellent flexibility, right? And it does have the detent, so it does pop in certain locations, the forward and backwards, and but you know, excellent forward and backward flexibility for that. So we got 1, 2, 3 solid positions, and then some kind of in between. Waist rotation, we've got good right there, and it is blocked by this belt as far as seeing that line. So it's good. And this is that flexible cast plastic that's a little bit softer, so it will flex with the rotation. But with the two working together, you do have very excellent flexibility and realism there, because yes, it does create that little bit of a gap, but it's kind of harder to tell because of the belt. The belt kind of implies an automatic gap because the belt is always a little bit more rigid than the rest of of what someone's wearing. So yeah, it made sense in my head before I said it. Flexibility, this does travel up if we try and do the split, and we've got a full Crimson Guard split. Look at that. So these guys, they train, but they do have where the legs drop down. So that is a feature that I know I've mentioned many times. I do like that feature. I don't know how others feel about it, but it definitely helps with flexibility, and I haven't really seen any other hindrance that it's caused. But we do have upper thigh rotation forward. Pretty good. It does not want to stay. There we go. So if we rotate it ever so slightly, the forward kick does work pretty well. And then if we rotate backwards, that could be considered one of the downfalls of the drop leg joint. But, you know, if we do it backwards, it'll go back just a little bit, and then you can take over the rest with the knee. But then speaking of the knee, we do have a double knee. Pinless with excellent flexibility for that good old limber up for the good old jog, the Crimson 5K, or you know what, the Crimson Marathon, why not? We do have calf rotation masked by the boot line, so that does help with that as far as masking where that line actually is. And then we do have the foot forwards and backwards. And then we hear my co-star in the background. That is good old Wally, aka Wallace. She likes to be a little bit a part of the show, so she's adding some extra little commentary to it. But yeah, so the boot does a good forward and backward. I can tell that the forward, there's more for it to give. There we go, one little pop extra. I didn't want to force it too much, but yeah, it did have more to give, and it gave it. So forward and backwards, very good. And then of course we've got ankle breaker capability. And I guess Wally is done with her contributions for this video. The very excellent ads, of course. And then the other leg has that same flexibility, that same masking of the calf rotation. I appreciate when they do that with the boots, and I like how the boot curves up right there. So it's not just a straight line. Very neat. Now, I mean, it would be cool to see silver on those little snaps, because they did silver on this buckle down here. How about just a tiny little dot on the snaps, or Even this buckle on the shoe, there's a little bit of silver. It was kind of tough to see, but I'm seeing the shine off of it more than anything. And I appreciate the texture on this boot. Okay, I'm getting lost in my thoughts again. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the paint apps here beyond what we've already looked at. So there are spots that I've noticed in just kind of going around this where it looks like some of the silver wasn't quite applied as thickly as it could have been. And it almost looks like some of it is rubbed off. It's almost like it's already got some age to it, some wear. So you see back here, the silver band is nowhere near as thick as it is towards the front, which makes sense. Yes, it is the back. I mean, we should be grateful that they even painted some silver around the back, is the truth of it. But then here on the wrist, or on the forearm, you can kind of see there's some where, yeah, some of the red's kind of showing through the silver there, almost like it already has some wear from years of play and age. But all these little silver lines just really help add that little bit of extra to the figure, even if sometimes it's a little thin. This is a cast gray plastic that is flexible, right? And it is attached to the shoulder. It looks like glue. I think we can kind of see some of the glue actually showing through right there and a little bit over here. But all the detail, the Cobra logo is printed on there very well. Looks like it's fairly well centered too. No real issues with that. And then the metals up here, I appreciate the detail on these. Let me shift to manual again to see if we can, yeah. See, I appreciate the detail on these. Now these, the black squares on the inside, I imagine they are intended to completely fill, but they don't quite. There's a little bit at the bottom that causes some issues. It looks like I can see some red showing through. Now, I don't think that that's an intentional thing for like it to be a different insignia. I assume it's 3 blocks all the way across for what this metal would represent. So there's a little bit right there, and then some of the silver is kind of missing on that, or it looks like it is because they're so thin. I guess the paint is supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to see red through it, but the silver kind of bled and the red showed through in different places. But the detail on this, because this is raised, right? This isn't just painted on. This is actually raised. This is painted on, but that is raised and painted. So that's very neat. I like seeing that. And we've got the V painted on the belt. Lots of opportunity for cool little silver dots on the rivets and the snaps around the belt. But, you know, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. So let's pop this little blade in here. And then, of course, we've got the side arm right there. And let's see what we've got. Let's see how he'll stand. And then, of course, it looks like we've got where this will hook to. There's a little hole in the belt right there. So we have that. You know what? Yeah. Got that on there. And then this should hook like that. And now I'm sure somebody will gladly tell me whether I'm doing this upright or not. I feel like I probably have it the wrong way. Shame on me if I do. And if I do, please let me know so that I don't mess up and do that again. But, you know, I don't know. Would it be bayonet up or down? Safety is the question there. I'm going to look it up myself. Let's get the focus to catch up with me. It'd be good if I wasn't just staring at the figure. How easily will he stand with all this stuff on his back? He's not thrilled about it, I'll tell you that, because that is a lot of weight pulling down on the back. So let's see how he stands without it, if it's a little bit easier, or if I just don't know how to make a figure stand up anymore. You know, he does just want to lean backwards is something that I'm picking up here. Okay, so I can't get him to stand on his own, but that is our Crimson Guard, and we'll be right back with some 360s. Thank you. And here we have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Hasbro Classified Series Crimson Guard. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Fantastic figure, right? Yes, I'm a sucker for everything G.I. Joe, but this one, very well made, very well executed. If you're thinking about getting it, grab it. If you want an army build, this is one of the most beautiful ones to create a massive army of. It's right up there with Alley Viper on my list. This was my original favorite until Alley Viper came out back in the original line, but still up there and just has a place in my heart, and they definitely did it the honor that it deserves. So no real issues with it as far as paint or anything like that. That's really any kind of major detractor. I almost had to ding it because it took me a little bit to get it to stand up. But it wasn't a balance thing as far as the weight. It was that left foot. Once I got the ankle joint to loosen up a little bit, I was able to position it properly. It was tilted down just a little bit and it was pushing the figure's weight and everything backwards. But as you can see, stands perfectly fine on its own now, no issues. So strongly recommended. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you. Hey everyone, we are currently running our Arrive Serpentor Arrive giveaway where we are giving away one Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Serpentor with Air Chariot. All you have to do is comment on this video to be entered to win. Each video during the giveaway period will have a secret keyword shared within the video, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Because the first person to comment that keyword gets pinned to the top of the comments and gets 2 entries for that video. A special thank you goes out to all of you for making it possible for us to be able to already start giving back. Well, that'll about do it. Thank you for checking us out and for joining on this collecting journey, as always. Remember, we are posting new videos almost daily as new ads and releases come. If we ever do a review of something you are trying to find for yourself, please follow and DM us on Instagram at JKCollectsToys so we can help with the search if we don't already have a way to get one. Also, if you got anything out of today's episode, please be sure to subscribe and click that like button so you can stay up to date on any new ones. If you'd like to see some more videos, there are a couple of quick links on your screen right now for you to check out. But no matter what, as always, thank you for taking the time, and remember, we are all in this world of collecting together. Let's look out for each other. Thanks.